Good morning, everyone. Really tough act to follow with Bryant there. I think one key takeaway I had, which I think is pretty amazing, is really blending the creative experience with the media experience. And I think you did that extremely well and probably dictated some of your success. So kudos. So I'm Josh Martin, as kind of the intro said. I head up mass acquisition media for really a digital-first company. Performics sits within Publicis Group and is the performance agency within Publicis, really specializing in SEM, SEO. I'm a bit of the performance video and performance audio guy. So one of the things that we try to do is have the connections and touch points to search in many cases for our campaigns. So I'm going to take you through a really brief presentation with a few key takeaways that I hope is helpful to you guys in thought process. The first kind of key takeaway and something to think about, which may be somewhat surprising, is that the agency toolkit is actually pretty good. And let me take you through what I mean by that. When you think about the way a traditional agency targets and prioritizes network investment, the traditional tools like MRI are leveraged quite frequently. We've kind of taken that to the next stage. We look at, in this chart, you could see kind of a list of cable networks, could easily be programs as well, focused on a buying demo. In this case, it was women 18 to 49. And we kind of compare metrics like audience concentration among the different cable networks. So is the target audience there? But then we also look at some quality metrics. Is the viewer staying tuned for the full length of the program? Are they also staying tuned to the commercial break? And get an index and understanding of how those networks perform based on those metrics. But we also then layer in MRI and some more advanced targeting. And then being a performance agency first, we also look at historical responsiveness, whether that's for the client direct or based on our large category and database of different advertisers and similar demographics. And we take that in and also compare that to inventory conditions and pricing. At the end of the day, we're netting out with a ranker and a prioritization for network investment. And again, this looks different almost for every client. And one of the things that we like to do is work with all key stakeholders and understand what is the right criteria and balance that we should put forth to each of these categories. And as an example, for a direct response television campaign, persistence may not be a very important metric. Actually, that may be something that the lower the persistence, the better it will be to get somebody to change their behavior and actually pick up the phone or go to the web and respond. So sometimes a low persistence score in the world of direct response could be a good thing. So net-net, what I've seen is that the agency toolkit is pretty damn good. And how I validated that is I looked at our network selection criteria and I gauged it versus all the different programmatic TV providers. So I had them provide us proposals and looking at, okay, what did their latest and greatest and innovative technologies output in terms of their network and rankings. And overall, it matched really, really strongly. I would say there was probably about a 90% overlap in placements. There was a few points of differentiation. Some of those points of differentiation, we were not there because there was a content issue or talent issue or let's say a sports sponsorship element and related to that. So that was a really interesting finding and made me feel pretty good about the agency toolkit, which is something that I constantly question and want to continue to innovate against. But as I guess Michael dived in this morning, there's certainly a lot of excitement in the TV world. I'm certainly excited by it. But I also have to stress the importance of showing a little bit of caution and really doing the due diligence to measure and understand the impact. So before proceeding and jumping into that campaign, think about and doing the math and the kind of reverse numbers to see, is it going to be ROI positive? Or are you going to see the return on ad investment from that capacity? So it was so wonderful to hear Michael's perspective, especially as a seller in that space, and even from his agency days saying, you know, in consumer packaged goods, 5 out of, I think it was 83 brands, it seemed viable for. So that means there was a whole host of brands that it wasn't. And I think that is one of the key takeaways that I would say to you guys is do the math and do that due diligence. So if you're looking at the two leading approaches, and I know this room, I sometimes speak to my spouse, I kind of feel like the teacher in Peanuts where it's like, wah, 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 she has no idea what I'm saying. but certainly speaking to this room, obviously it's kind of a lot of shared experiences here. We think about the space of both programmatic television as well as household addressable a little bit differently. Number one, we don't think about programmatic TV because we don't think about programmatic. It's not anywhere near what digital programmatic is. So I think even starting with the naming convention and calling something programmatic TV, I think it brings some of that legacy and some of that experience from digital, and I think that corrupts that experience, either for the better or for the worse, in most cases for the worse, because programmatic TV, which we call audience concentrated or index TV, is really about taking an advanced data source and then scoring and ranking the networks accordingly. Not so much different than that previous tool that I showed you, where there was about 90% overlap. It's not like digital programmatic at all. There's no real-time bidding element in place, which is huge. So it's not real-time. There is no bidding. Let me just stress that. The other major factor and difference for you to keep in mind is pricing. I think one of the reasons why digital programmatic really was a huge success story was based on all three factors: the real-time nature, the ability to bid and understand the value of each impression, factoring in advanced data sources, but also the pricing lowered. So instead of having to pay a huge premium to be on NewYorkTimes.com, I could reach that same user with that same target audience criteria, but target them a lot more effectively and efficiently. Well, in the wonderful world of television, whether you want to call it audience-concentrated or programmatic television, the pricing is doing nothing but increasing. And you may try to say and slice and dice and say, well, the strategic CPM is better. Well, evaluate that and determine if that is actually the case. But I'm a little bit more weary of programmatic TV at this point. Great, some data, but then it goes back to the old manual way of putting a buy together. However, household addressable, a little bit of a different species from that regard. Actually, it's probably most closely aligned to digital programmatic. Again, the pathway is actually very similar. In this, what's very interesting, and a lot of times I get proposals back, you see nothing in terms of network selection coming back with a household addressable buy. It's really about reaching the target, most effectively reaching the target. That is the criteria. So if you ask the question of what networks do you run on, you kind of get a weird look of, oh, the network doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. The fact that you're reaching the right user is what the important element is. So that differs very much than the audience-concentrated buy, where you're going to get an output of networks as well as day parts, et cetera, and how the strategic target aligns with those networks. There's still inherent waste with that buy, but you're trying to eliminate some of that waste. But you have to be wary and cognizant of the cost premiums. So when we think about taking this new landscape and these latest innovations in terms of building audiences, a change occurs. So there's still the syndicated data and research sources, the MRIs of the world, if you would, that are going to continue to be important to us. But we really see the evolution occur within first-party data, second-party data, third-party data. So obviously, first-party data we feel is the best opportunity. It's something that you see will drive the greatest engagement. Also provides the best ability for cross-sell and upsell. And where I think a lot of brands and marketers fall short is that disconnect between creative, and I think that's what Brian's company has done so well in their marketing, is they really bridge that gap between creative assets and customizing creative based on those different segments, instead of just taking a broadcast asset and repurposing it for this landscape. If you're not taking that data and applying different creatives for each of the customer segments, probably is a miss. The other element is second-party data. You hear a lot about first-party and third-party. Don't forget the importance of second-party, because actually it's incredibly important when you think about strategic partnerships and sharing databases, et cetera. Second-party data probably proliferates in its importance. Third-party data, it continues to be the lion's share of the opportunity. And really the data supplier and the match partner becomes so key, whether it's Experian, Axiom, Newstar, Lotame, whatever that provider may be, becomes so key to that landscape. However, and I guess important lesson for Purple, if you're thinking about engaging in this space, with third-party data, your competitors can also buy it and also target on it and also be in that same place. So it's less area for differentiation as we mature in this space together. From a Performics perspective, we're really focused on trying to build this notion of what we call intent-based planning, which is basically taking, instead of a top-to-bottom approach, it's very much a bottom-to-top approach. So most TV planners start with saying, okay, this is my target, this is their consumer journey, this is their consumption habits, and this is why I'm being placed here, or placing my media against these people. With intent, it's looking at their search. So is somebody searching, and what pages are they going to? Are they further along the acquisition funnel? Are they about to purchase? Or are they just researching and looking at reviews? And so we've been very effective and able to tie it obviously to search buys in this targeting rigor, but also being able to expand that to online video buys and some connected TV buys. We still have a lot of work connecting that to traditional television. So it's going to get there. I'm still ambitious enough to make it work. But right now, concentrated on the first 3 areas of that evolution. I say do the math. It's critical, it's important. The excitement that I have, so if you look at this, probably an awful visual here, but this is the new way if you think about targeting. So let's say if you're a back, and you're targeting people that have back issues, back problems, whether that's a copper fit or a laser spine institute, whoever it may be. You may think, okay, well, people that have back pain look like this. They're a majority of 50 plus, obviously may work in specific areas and specialties that may have caused back pain. However, there's so many new targeting opportunities that are out there, so you can get very specific, and the idea of age and demo is meaningless. I can target based on somebody that has this bone spur or bulging disc as a condition state, or somebody that had a surgery for a pinched nerve and retarget to them with a different message. As an example. So that is incredibly exciting and incredibly powerful. You have to do the math and understand, in order to do this targeting, the cost is going to be about 4 to 6 times higher than what you're currently paying. So is it possible, is it feasible to make up that ground in premium? Perhaps. You know, you need to see a lift in response rate or a lift in conversion rate or a combination of both to offset that. Is it possible to do that? Well, Michael Bologna says yes in many cases. We've seen some success stories, but we've also seen areas where it has not been successful. So again, the right client matters so tremendously. So if you think about these condition states and even think about the world of pharma, to me, the idea of what's the lifetime value of that consumer becomes of critical importance, because you're able to bring somebody in from a lead generation effort, and that person is going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on your brand over the course of a relationship. That premium probably works itself out. If you're an auto and that customer is going to buy a very high valued purchase and hopefully stay loyal to the brand, that may pay out. And again, as that tube of toothpaste that Michael shared earlier may not end up yielding successful metrics. And again, I would encourage you, build that ROIS calculator, build that ROI calculator, understand what you need to see from a response rate, what you need to see from a conversion rate perspective in order for this to validate. Leverage your digital learnings and apply what you've seen in terms of lifts there to see if it will pay out. But please understand, unlike digital in the world of programmatic digital, the networks and inventory suppliers are looking at this as incremental revenue opportunity, looking at a way to offset some of the decline in ratings erosion, but as well as to make more money at the end of the day for what they're selling. Yes, provide more value, hopefully, to both marketers and agencies, but at the same time, you have to be very careful in understanding and do your evaluation of whether it will make sense. So again, a lot of clients were pushing forward because it does make sense to go for this targeting rigor, but not for all cases. And again, I'm thinking about this from a pure linear television perspective, not confusing that with Hulu's or online videos or connected TVs, where that landscape and infrastructure and pricing is a bit different. So that's what I just wanted to share with you, give you some perspective leading into the panel in the next few minutes.
And if you have any questions for Josh, save them, because we're going to fold them into Q&A for the panel. And let me ask our panel to come up and continue.